This morning, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Guildrun patch notes that were just released yesterday. Got these linked to us in the React channel and Discord, so thought no better place than to take a look at them here with you guys and see what the Guildrun devs have in store for us. Let's get to it. Hello, Guildmasters, and welcome to our weekly update, which brings you another major balance pass, including dev notes explaining the thought process behind some of the changes, some visual tweaks and optimizations, and some bug fixes. As always, the stars mark changes inspired by community suggestions. That's actually really cool. Maybe I should have noted this is the first time we're going through a Guildrun patch notes. So this is a cool thing they're doing here, calling out when the community might have played a role in the change. Thank you for playing Guildrun, suggesting improvements, reporting issues, sharing your feedback. It's a blast improving the game with you, and we appreciate every one of you. Now let's jump into the changes. Bunch of visual changes. I'm not going to go through those. Honestly, I don't think those need to be read out loud, but that's great that they are going through some visual changes. Some bug fixes. Fixed a bug with Strange Fruit event where relics with permanent stat bonuses were not granted. Okay, that's good. We like that. Fixed a bug where hero growth could block the crossroads button by hitting their sides after battle. That's just pretty funny. Fixed missing rush trigger tracking in the Russian localization. Obviously didn't impact us, but that's great. Fixed a couple issues with text formatting in Russian and Chinese localizations, and the red fruits option in the Strange Fruits event now correctly gives a reward immediately. All right, fantastic. On to the balance changes, the meaty stuff by Aleko, the lead designer on Guildrun. Welcome to patch number 3 for the Guildrun demo. We've got plenty of changes in store this week with a much heavier focus on buffs over nerfs than last week's patch. I pay very close attention to all the feedback I can find on Guildrun, and many players were clear in their feedback on last week's balance patch that they were disappointed by the number of nerfs in comparison to the number of buffs. This feedback was taken to heart, and I hope that players who were disappointed by last week's patch will be much happier with this one. If you're only interested in reading about the balance changes this week, please feel free to skip ahead to the gameplay update section. If you're interested in reading a bit about game design, my personal philosophy when it comes to balance changes and how I approach this week's patch differently than last week's, then this next section is for you. Heck yeah, I'm interested in that. I love that they're willing to communicate their thought processes, you know, both maybe, well, hopefully, we'll see as we're about to read, but hopefully kind of, yeah, what is their philosophy towards game design, and then how they're approaching it specifically for Guildrun, and maybe what some of their end goals are or something like that. Balancing for everyone. I've been working on balance patches for a while now. First at Riot, same. Well, not as a game designer, but then at Blizzard, and now at Leyline. And the hardest part about making a good balance patch is that different groups of players have different sets of expectations. Oh my God, yes. I mean, that you can apply that to anything, right? You could say the same thing for viewers of a stream, right? Consumers of anything, right? Your audience, your consumer base, your whatever. Everybody has their own unique and individual expectations, of a product. So making anything, this applies, but of course, yeah, applies to balance as well. More specifically when it comes to games, yeah, you've got people who are pushing, or even just right here in Guildrun, it's like you've got the red rift players, right? You've got the endless mode players. You've got the players who want to play the more casual, lower tier ones without the, the disadvantages and the impositions, and then you got the players who want to push the limits. You've got the meta slavers. You've got the people who want to one-trick something, right? And so how do you balance for the guy who wants to force a comp every single time versus the person who actually wants to be pushed, to come up with new ideas? So one group of players might be expecting a nerf to a hero that is dominating the meta and celebrate when it happens, while another group will be upset that you just nerfed their favorite hero. Exactly. One part of the Guildrun community feels like Red Rift is too hard and would like to see its difficulty decrease, while another part feels like Red Rift is too easy and would like to see its difficulty increased. When it comes to balance changes that have competing interests, and in my opinion, very few balance changes don't have competing interests. Yes, I would agree. How do I go about making decisions? Let's find out. Since it isn't, since it just isn't possible for every player to be happy with every decision I make, I try to think about each decision in terms of the net fun it will add to the game for each kind of player. I read through my list of changes from the perspective of each major player group, then add up the total amount of positive and negative fun units I expect these players to derive from each change. This way, even though certain changes add to the net fun of one group while subtracting from another, I can always aim for each player group to end up with a positive net fun score, which hopefully translates to a positive view on the patch. However, if even one player group ends up with a net fun negative, then I haven't done my job well enough. I mean, theoretically, I like the idea. Yeah, theoretically, I like the idea. I think it can be difficult to end up in a situation, call me a skeptic, that you could make changes and all players, all groups end up with a positive score, right? I think there might be some kind of natural conflict there where it's like you can't make everybody happy, right? We just kind of know that about life. You can't make everybody happy. So I think that would immediately make me skeptical of a system where you can make everybody happy. I do think that, you know, a harsh reality of the world we live in is that there will be people who are disappointed by decisions, by balancing. There will be somebody who is left at the end of a patch thinking the game is worse rather than better. For Guildrun, the three major groups of players are the climbers, the endless mode players, and the red rift players. Okay, so he's choosing to stipulate that he's just gonna bucket everybody into these three types. The climbers are players who are in the process of climbing through the difficulties to unlock and complete all of Guildrun's content, and are currently our largest group of players by a decent margin. Okay, everyone starts out as a climber, and for many of these players, the quest to discover everything the game has to offer is the game. The experience that players have during their climb through the difficulties is incredibly important to us, and the feedback from climbers helps make the game better for all climbers, present and future. Since the primary goal for most climbers is to progress up the game's difficulties, it's easy to understand why nerfs can feel like an obstacle standing between them and their goals, and why buffs feel like a helping hand. Yeah, 100%, right? If there's an obstacle in front of you that you have yet to overcome, you know, a nerf is, again, going to feel like an imposition. It's making my job harder. A buff makes it easier. But I don't know if everybody would always see that as a positive thing either. I, for example, I am one of those people, like, I'll make an analogy to, like, in World of Warcraft, when I was mythic raiding, I never wanted to kill a nerfed version of a boss. Like, I'm not delusional. I'm not thinking I'm going to kill world first raid level bosses. But by the time I'm getting to bosses, like, I want to kill them in that state. Like, I don't want us to get to the patch the following week where the boss gets nerfed, and we're killing it now because it got nerfed. Like, so that, where the boss gets nerfed, which in effect is buffing us, or let's say they buffed my class and now all of a sudden we can kill it, right? Point being, the achievement for me as a player gets cheapened when it feels like the dev had a helping hand in the matter. So that's interesting, because I don't know if this generalization would, like, if every player in the climber group would agree with this generalization necessarily. Maybe I do agree that the majority would. 100%. It's also interesting that they're choosing to bucket players based on climbers, endless mode, and red rift. I wonder, I'll just be curious, and we can make this assessment after we read about the next two categories, if you could substitute this more for, right, like, again, making analogies like League of Legends, be like normal queue, and then like, or like ARAM players, normal queue, ranked players. Would it be more rank based? Would it be more like the average level players? So like bronze, silver, bronze, you know, advanced players, gold, plat, emeralds, diamonds, you know, and top level players, whatever, grandmaster and above or something like that, masters and above, because I think you have options for how you bucket players, versus just like the current content they're interacting with, right? Because I might currently be in the climbing phase, but I might be a different type of player, right? So again, that's what I think plays into my assessment here, is like, if I were still climbing through the game right now, if they started giving me a helping hand in my climbing, I would feel kind of meh. Next up are our endless mode players, who are roughly equal in number to our red rift players. Okay, that's interesting. That's about 50, or like equivalent numbers, not 50-50, but endless mode players tend to view the game in terms of how fun the current state of endless is, which comes with a very different set of goals and expectations from the other player groups. 100%. Perhaps the biggest expectation that Endless players have for balance patches is that they increase the variety of viable Endless builds. This means that buffs are often welcome, but that nerfs are only improving their Endless experience if they hit something which is too dominant compared to other Endless strategies. Okay, yeah. Most Endless players are also invested in keeping the difficulty of the game stable. Increases to the difficulty of the game mean that few are able to survive long enough to reach Endless mode and get their chance to shine, while decreases to the difficulty in the game lead to situations where the greediest builds start to outshine the others, and the role that luck plays in the game becomes too big. Okay. Then come our Red Rift players, who are easily our most dedicated group. They play many more runs per patch than the other groups, and consequently tend to identify Guildrun's powerful heroes and specializations quite quickly, and rely on balance changes to keep the game fun and engaging. Things which stand out as overpowered or auto-pick tend to be more frustrating for Red Rift players than the other player groups, which means that the highest impact and most desired balance changes for Red Rift players are usually nerfs over buffs. I don't know if I agree with that as a Red Rift player. Buffs to anything unpickable are still appreciated, but the nerfs that do the heavy, it's the nerfs that do heavy lifting for the Red Rift audience. Again, I don't know if I agree with that assessment as a hardcore Red Rift player. Red Rift players are very important to us, which makes it hard for me to imagine putting together a patch where I don't listen to their feedback and make a few high impact nerfs. I understand that nerfs are often in direct conflict with the goals of the climbers and Endless mode players as well, but my hope is that I'm able to make enough positive changes for the other groups that everyone ends up happy with the patch. Last patch, I simply didn't do a good job at calculating what the net fun would be for our climbers and Endless players who ultimately weren't happy with the ratio of buffs to nerfs. I did my best to learn from their feedback, and in this week's patch, I made a serious effort to improve the buff-nerf ratio in a way that I hope everyone will enjoy. Cool. Well, that's really awesome perspective to get from a game designer and on game balance and game design. But for what it's worth, Aleko, if you were to ever see this, as somebody who has put in quite a few games into the Red Rift already, I would question and challenge you to question your own theory, your own hypothesis here that Red Rift players value or would value nerfs more highly than buffs. I think any balance change executed well is valued highly, right? If it is intended to, or rather, if it achieves its intended effect to benefit the group that you're targeting, right? So the idea that you can't find or create more balance in the Red Rift by buffing something into more viability, I think is a bad, I think that's bad. It's a bad approach to think that that's not possible, or to assume, or to assume that the only way to make a group happy or to achieve the intended effect for that group is to go through nerfs. But cool perspective nonetheless. All right, all in the timing. Something I spent a lot of time focusing on in this week's patch was the importance of timing. Hey. Especially when it comes to heroes. Run-based win rates simply don't tell the whole story when it comes to determining how powerful something is. For a game like Guildrun, if you want to know how powerful something is, then you need to take a close look at how they perform in each of the game's 5 major timings. Act 1, Act 1 boss, Act 2, Act 2 boss, and Endless. Gotcha. Okay. Let's start with the example of Karsu, who is currently the number 2 overall win rate hero in both Red Rift and SS. Interesting. I would not have guessed that. I can assume in Red Rift, actually. I wouldn't have thought in SS. Unless, he just means win rate. Okay, win rate meaning like at the point, not Endless, just at the end of Act 2 boss, if that's what he means by when win rate is calculated. Then it does make sense to me, because Karsu's just phenomenal against bosses in single target. So that would make sense. So the statistic doesn't surprise me, and I assume what he's going to say is, but Karsu was not used to get to that point, right? Probably Karsu loses a majority of hallway fights or something like that. When you take a closer look at how she performs over time, though, you'll see that she does fantastic against bosses. There you go. Okay, but is in the bottom half of heroes when it comes to non-boss fights. The opposite is true for Funky. whose overall win rate suggests that he might be one of the game's worst heroes, despite the fact that he's arguably the strongest hero in the game in non-boss fights. Exactly. He's got AoE, so he destroys non-boss fights, sucks against bosses because he doesn't have a ton of single target damage, and he doesn't do a good enough job at debuffing usually. And he doesn't scale like infinitely. All right, while putting together today's patch, I went one by one through each hero in the game to assess how they were performing across each of the 5 timings. I wanted to ensure that each hero had a clear identity in terms of their power across the 5 timings, and that no hero was underperforming or overperforming in 3 or more of the 4 pre-endless timings. I also did my best to ensure that each hero had specializations which were strong in different timings, and that no specialization was clearly better or worse than the other 2 specializations across the board. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of goals. This resulted in a hefty number of hero changes this week, with 16 heroes receiving some kind of update. 10 of these heroes purely received buffs, 5 received a mix of buffs and nerfs, and 1, Saul, my girl, no, purely received nerfs. So sad. I'll do my best to call out these timing-based changes in their individual descriptions, and I hope that everyone enjoys the changes. All right, very cool. Let's get into it. Gameplay updates. Red Rift leaderboard reset. Due to the expected impact of the balance changes in this patch, we will be resetting the Red Rift leaderboard. We'll currently aiming to reset the leaderboard tomorrow, so that would be today when we're looking at this on stream, I believe, as some technical issues prevented us from being able to warn players in Klein about the upcoming reset on time. Got it? Okay, starting bonuses. Notes. I am super happy with last week's changes to starting bonuses. None of the bonuses which had their shard penalty removed appear to be out of line, while all of the nerfed bonuses are still very pickable and playable. The one bonus which changed more than I would have liked to see was All In, which saw its win rate fall after the bug fix to Emergency Rewind. So he's buffing All In, 5 extra shards. Cool. Start with 5 more money. We don't mind that. All right, relics. Team size. See, I would like, hey, Aleko, again, love the communication, so want to positively reinforce this kind of perspective is amazing to hear from devs. You know what I would love to hear your perspective on is team size and how it interacts with the Red Rift. And whether or not it even needs to, because I think currently the conventional wisdom is that increasing your team size is basically a non-option in the Red Rift, because maybe because of a couple reasons. Number one, due to the fact that you're not going into endless mode, stretching your resources into a 4th character on the board might not mean none of your characters ever become necessarily powerful enough. You lose anyway. Or perhaps more consequentially, because of the quest demands of the Red Rift, you, and specifically the hero deaths that you're allowed to have, adding a 4th person onto the board is just a 4th character that can die and ultimately increases your chances of losing. But I think team size is one of the most fun variables to play with. Like, when is it good to increase your team size and when is it not, right? And spend resources on that thing. But right now it just doesn't feel like it's a part of the Red Rift. So I would love to get your perspective on the way that team size specifically interacts with Red Rift and Red Rift players. Regardless, let's take a look at what's changing with relics in this patch. Team size notes: the buffs to team size relics will continue until morale improves. Okay, so they're reducing the cost on it for Harmony Crystal. Got it. Which is great in Endless and stuff like that. But all right, legendaries. Acceleration, legendary crystal. Restoration is going from 6 to 8 on that. I wish in this moment I knew what exactly this thing does. Like, we need to see more than just the change that's being made. We need the tooltip here in patch notes, to be honest. Because I can't tell you what Acceleration Legacy Crystal does. Does it increase rush durations by 6? I'm assuming that's what it does. So really it's just now increasing rush effects by 8 as opposed to 6. And then I'm assuming this is the epic version of it, going from 4 to 5, which is cool. I don't feel like I see rush builds that often, like with the purpose of extending rush durations. We see plenty of rush builds with rush triggers. But regardless, that's fun because I don't feel like I see it very often, and I myself don't play them very often. So this might encourage me to try to go for like a Ming Rush immune build, where like he spends the first 10 plus seconds of the fight immune. Would be really, really cool. Okay, and Deceleration Corruptor added stall 45 triggers. So again, I assume that this has other earlier stall triggers, and now it's getting more triggers. Yeah, this is difficult. I don't know if these are these patch notes are done in a way that's very easy for us to interact with. Like you have it's the burden of knowledge here for knowing what every single, I mean, this we know, but relic does, or every item does, is going to be very difficult. Even still, we'll go through it, we'll read through it, but we might be speeding through the rest of this here, friends. Regardless, the top part was very interesting. Codex relics were slightly underperforming across the board, so I buffed their initial stats. So these are the ones where you get a stat, and then every time you win a combat, you get more of that stat permanently. So the attack one going from 6 to 9, magic going from 6 to 9, omnivamp from 2 to 3, HP from 50 to 75 per combat, defense 10 to 15, crit 4 to 6, and 5 to 8 on attack speed. This I love because I'm a scaler. I love passive buffs and scaling, so I'm happy about this. Funnily enough, I don't know if it actually is necessary. Like, I thought these were all relatively strong if you got them early enough. I think the debate in Red Rift was always what combat, like where in the, you know, in the act, or you know, where in the game am I getting presented this option, and how many combats do I have left? But yeah, now if you're getting an early omnivamp in Act 1, like you could have 20, nearly 20 plus omnivamp by the end of the game, which would be insane. Unique notes. I'm trying to be very selective with my nerfs this week, but nerfs to these two relics were hard to avoid. Duelist Outbreak was 10% higher win rate than the second best guild banner relic. For those Duelist Outbreak, I believe this is the one where when Duelist auto attack, they just increase the number of debuffs that are on the target. So it just like scaled like absolutely absurdly. While Shard Resonator was outperforming all other Event 2 relics by a similar margin. As always, when it comes to nerfs, I fully expect that these two relics will still be among the top choices in their category after the changes. So no longer gives one attack per debuff. Gotcha. And then Shard Resonator, wow. Okay, so I mean that's a pretty big nerf though. I think Shard Resonator is basically just when you create shards, give your team a shield. So 1k to 600, that is a big nerf, 40% nerf, but 600 is still a lot. So I see his point. He'll probably still be played. Items, epic. Notes, Rogue Cal needed a rework for more than one reason. Firstly, it was discovered that you could use multiple Rogue Cals to go infinite in endless mode with the right setup. Okay, don't love that. It also just so happened to be the lowest win rate epic in the game. That's an interesting combination. I mean, I guess you needed like a very specific quirk to go infinite, but my goal with the changes to Rogue's Cal is to make the item more exciting and powerful and to break up the infinite potential in endless mode. The changes to Ring of Virality are intended to be a buff by having the item provide more relevant stats for its most likely holders. Okay, so Rogue's Cal removed Rush, now gives stealth to the holder at the start of combat and every 20 seconds for 3 seconds. Okay, so they just removed the Rush trigger from it, so you can't get something that like causes Rush to happen again, and then you're perma-stealthed. They increased the crit, reduced the magic or take off magic damage, and gave it attack speed. So it's more of an attack focused, auto attack focused build item now. And then Ring of Virality is more of an enchanter item. It looks a mystic type item now. It looks like removing max health from it. Rare items, sword gets more attack. Cool. Squire's Helm, I think. Oh, bonus max HP. Yeah, this is the one where if somebody's standing and one person's in front of you, you both get max HP. Again, probably a great buff for something like endless mode, because now you just continue to scale. If you get it offered early in Red Rift, that could be really good. You can still gain quite a bit of max health by the end of the game. All right, let's look at heroes though, because this is where I think things are gonna get really interesting. Nicholas, our boy Nicholas, who we never play because we hate him. I don't think he's very fun. I don't think he's very good. Nicholas is back on the menu. Red Rift players. Oh, so he claims. Okay. Due to Nicholas's insatiable hunger for items in his leftmost slot, we had to remove him from the pool of potential starting heroes in Red Rift to prevent him from eating the Rift Seal. We're giving him an extra item slot to work with out of the gates, which means we can put him back in the pool of starting heroes for Red Rift while also giving a much deserved buff to our favorite item eater. Okay. So he just gets +1 item slot now. And he'll now be presented to us at the beginning, which I don't love, because the fact that he was out of the pool is great. I never wanted to pick him anyway, so that's a bummer that he's in the pool now. The executive extra item slots goes to 1 because now he's got this. Got it. Okay. Along with the red hot deals change, this will result in Nicholas having the same number of total item slots when he picks this spec. I see. Okay. Ming's story is a tale of two acts. He's one of the better heroes in Act 1 and performs well enough in Endless, but was falling off a bit too much in Act 2. These changes are all aimed at improving his scaling potential for Act 2 and beyond. That's interesting, because I really like Ming. So if they're making him more viable, I'll happily play him more as a tank, because I always end up like fishing for pimentas and things like that. But I like Ming a lot. So the Enlightened duration increase for rush abilities, one base plus 1 per rank is going to 0 base to 2 per rank. Okay, interesting. So you're still going to get 2 at the first rank because you're B rank when you get it. So this was the ability I was talking about when I was saying if the relics above that were being changed are increasing the duration of rush abilities, you could see like a Ming immune build, because he has this ability where he passively increases rush durations and then he gets immune for rush 1. So that means he's immune for 1 second at the beginning of the fight. But it would be 1 plus 2 because he's B rank. And so he would immediately get the +2 here. Then if you get him to A, it's +4. So now it's 5 seconds of immunity out the gate. And then maybe you have some relics that increase rush duration or something like that. Or an item that increases rush duration or something like that. And now all of a sudden he's immune for 10, 15 plus seconds in the fight. That could be really fun. I would like to try that, if possible. The Searing, his active ability, this is the one where he twirls and stuns everybody, does a decent amount of damage, and then inflicts some burn. So they're just increasing the amount of burn that he inflicts. So that's also awesome. The Tempered max HP boost, 25% base plus 25 per rank. Now it's going to be 20% base plus 30 per rank, so it scales better, but it's the same at start. I honestly don't even remember what this skill is. I don't know if I've ever taken it, but that's cool. Again, they're just increasing his scaling, so exactly as he says. They're effectively not changing him in Act 1. Except for actually the active ability is a little bit better in Act 1. But all of these things, he's still the same at the time that you would get them. And then they scale better if you hit higher ranks. Zuri, who I want to like so badly, but she just doesn't feel tanky enough. She doesn't feel true tanky enough. She feels to me like a bruiser. So she would need like a second front line. So you'd have to like split targeting and stuff like that. She just doesn't ever feel true tanky enough to me. Zuri's doing great in normal fights, struggling against bosses, and maybe that's exactly what I mean. The Cruel needed some buffs to catch up with her other specs, but it's already surprisingly good against the Act 2 boss thanks to its scaling power and built-in stun. My hope is that these buffs will make the Cruel a bit less of a liability in Act 1 while also providing Zuri with a solid boss-killing option. Okay, the Cruel poison inflicted per stack of stone skin goes from 1 to 2, and the base damage goes up. All right. Interesting. Not really the things I don't feel like she needed more damage personally. That was never my concern with her. Maybe I'm playing her wrong. Yuna has a strong Act 1. She falls off in Act 2 while also being awful in both boss fights. Yes, she is truly awful in the boss fights. My goal with these changes is give her a stronger Act 2, also hopefully raising her floor in boss fights so there's no longer a liability in them. That's going to be hard to do, I think. Max shurikens are going up on her signature ability. She just jumps and throws shurikens. But they're reducing the number of shurikens per crit. So now places her behind the enemy based on the direction they're facing. Oh, that's good, because she dies all the time. Dragomir does this too, actually. So I wonder if they'll make this change for Dragomir when he's on his I think it's his mage spec where he jumps, because they kill themselves all the time jumping into the cleave. So that's good. I'm happy that they're doing that. That's massive. And the shadow magic, or mana gained rather, goes from 30 to 40. This change allows her to insta-cast when she has an effect that gives her stealth at start of combat. Okay, yeah, I think these are the more important changes here, obviously. And this is a big one for sure, where she's just not going to be inting in boss fights. Ho Young. Okay, Ho Young is in a similar position to Yuna. Strong Act 1, weaker Act 2, poor boss fight performance. These changes will allow him to secure more kills per run and scale better in the late game. Okay, so his base stats, max mana is going down, which just means, and his starting mana is going down, so your first cast is going to happen at the same time, right? It's going to happen after you generate 35 mana, but every cast after that is going to require 5 less, right? So basically a flat buff to him. Kill shot, his signature ability, the scaling is just going up, both from attack and magic. So no matter what stat you're putting on him, he's just going to do more damage. So he'll cast it a little bit more frequently, and it'll hit a little bit harder. So hopefully he'll get more kills. Awesome, because there is a point sometimes in the acts where like he's not one-shotting a backliner anymore, and then he's just not fast enough, and he's not viable. Sniper attack per hex per rank is so the base and per rank is going up. This change is a bug fix, as the text said it was giving 10, but the code was only giving 8. Interesting. Okay. And crit per hex per rank is going up, base and per rank. All right. So that skill is just getting flatly better. Grace is intended to be the mystic that scales the hardest. Along with Ratna and Logan, she is one of only 3 heroes in the game that have different scaling values for their signature stat per rank. Since Grace wasn't performing as well as I would like to see in Act 2, I'm increasing her scaling values to help her realize her late game scaling mystic dreams. Yeah, I've always wanted to make Grace scaling work. And both, I mean, this is good that they're scaling her active ability, but also I've always wanted to make her B ability work, where she gives the permanent scaling to other class abilities and stuff like that. I would love to see her be more viable, but I always feel like I'm subbing her out for, if I'm running a Mystic, I'm subbing her out for a Pollen, who just has better healing and shielding, it feels like, in all cases. Hey, have a good day, Perp. Good to see you. All right, Fiona, let's talk about her. So yeah, hopefully this just buffs her into viability. We'll have to give her a shot, because also, yeah, like her early shielding and stuff just never feels valuable enough that you would be willing to play her to scale to late. All right, Fiona, when players bring up the question of who's the worst hero in the game, Fiona's name comes up a lot. Her data tells the story of a hero that actually isn't bad in any timing, okay, but also isn't great at any timing either. Her 3 specs are basically equally powerful, and each have their own strengths and weaknesses when it comes to timings, which suggests a change to her core kit is needed. I want to position Fiona as the cast most frequently Mystic, so I'm decreasing her max mana by a good chunk and her starting mana to almost match. So reducing her max mana by 15 and then reducing the starting mana by 20. So kind of the same thing, but slightly different than Ho Young. The first cast is actually going to take longer, because it was only 70 mana before, and now it's 75. But every cast after that's going to come way quicker, because it takes 15 mana less. So significantly. Now I'm very curious about a Fiona item printing cast build or something like that. Again, if you get an early Fiona and like Fiona B and just get her pumping cast out or something like that, could be a really interesting support build. My girl Pollen. Let's see. Pollen has 1 spec, the Phase Kiss, which just isn't up to snuff with their other 2. The Phase Kiss, the first stall duration at 10 and the second stall duration at 30. I don't even remember what this one does, because the only one I ever take is the shielding one, which just, where after stall 15 or something, all of her healing and shielding is increased. That's just so good. So that's just the one that I play. I don't even know what this one does. But that's cool. They're just making mine. As long as they're not hitting the spec that I like, they can make Pollen better. They can give me more ways to play Pollen. I'm not mad about that at all. All right, Funky. Funky's established himself as Guildrun's definitive mob crusher over the past few patches, but has become a bit too definitive for much of the Red Rift community's liking. Oh, baby. See, this is going to be great for me, too, because I actually never play him. So if they're going to nerf him, I'm cool with that. I like that Funky is a character with clear strengths and weaknesses. He's strong in non-boss fights and weak in boss fights, but his strength at stabilizing boards across both acts has made it too easy for players to play greedy and cover up for his weaknesses by buying a boss slayer like Karsu. All three of his specs rank among the top performers in Act 1, which suggests that one of his base numbers is a bit too high. Meanwhile, his detonator spec is widely regarded as the best spec in the game for Red Rift, and the data largely backs this up. It's not all bad news for Funky fans, though. His Inferno spec has some room for buffs. I hope to position it as his best boss slaying spec after these changes. Okay, that's cool if they do give him a spec that is a little bit more single target, boss oriented. Wildfire, just reducing the base burn per fireball, which is legit. It's fine by me. Detonator ticks on cast is just getting flatly nerfed. Less at the beginning and less on the scaling, so less per rank. Still so that's 14 at first level, right, to 20, so it's -6 on ticks of burn, which is actually pretty significant in terms of the amount of burst damage that's going to do. That's a decent nerf for sure. And again, then you go up the next rank and you lose another 3, so it's 6. You're losing 6 at rank 1 or rank C, and you're losing 3 every rank after that. So it doesn't hit the scaling as much, but it does hit him a lot up front. And plus his signature ability is getting hit anyway, so he's already just going to be a little bit worse. The Inferno in-game text on this ability said it was only inflicting 15 base burn, but it was actually inflicting 25 in the code. I'm keeping it at 25, correcting the text. Okay, so it was actually already better than it said it was. And then burn inflicted per magic is going to 1/3, so that's the buff he's talking about. Okay, very cool. We'll have to see if that actually still ever gets played, though, because I feel like people are still just going to play him when they play him for his AoE. I don't know if that's going to get him to, like, out. Like, are you gonna be shoving a Karsu off the the roster for a boss fight with this? I don't know. Karsu, Fire and Ice. Karsu is the anti-Funky. She crushes against bosses, struggles a bit in non-boss fights, especially in Act 2. I'm happy to maintain this identity for her, but I both want to raise her floor in non-boss fights and lower her ceiling slightly for boss fights. The 3 extra base attack damage should make her a much more threatening auto-attacker and all-around duelist for non-boss floors, while the adjustments to her mana value should make her casts beyond the first one stack up a bit slower for the boss fight she's already dominant in. Okay, yeah, well, he explained it perfectly there, so... Yeah, just messing with her base stats, but this just means, for example, she's hitting that frontline unit, and right now she can't get through it to then maybe threaten a backliner or something like that. Doing 3 more base attack damage is going to be pretty significant. But with the mana going up, those successive casts going to come out a little bit slower every single time. So she's just not going to stack the debuffs as quickly. Scorn, happy with the state of Scorn? What? I think I take issue with that statement. I don't think Scorn is that... He does not feel that playable to me. I'm happy with the overall state of Scorn, who does a great job of scaling up in power as the game progresses. His Bristleguard spec has been his least popular by a wide margin. And even though I don't expect these changes to suddenly make it popular, I do hope they make players consider it a bit more than they might have before. Base defense per tank, base poison per tank. I think the problem with this is, at least maybe for Red Rift players, is again like the whole idea of like team size and stuff like that. It's like I'm barely ever running more than 1 tank, so it still isn't that appealing. If I was running 3 tanks, then all of a sudden this change looks pretty good. I'm getting not 5 extra, I'm getting 15 extra. I'm getting of both now. So yeah. As somebody who really likes Scorn and wants to play Scorn and wants Scorn to be good, I don't know if I agree with Scorn being being good overall. And I don't know if this is a change that's going to make me consider Bristleguard really anymore. So meh. That's the first one that's leaving me a little sour taste. Ratna. The fashionable was Ratna's top spec in 3 of 4 pre-endless timings, while the ostentatious had the opposite problem. I'm adjusting both of these specs with the goal of making all 3 of her spec choices more equal. The fashionable HP per item rank. Oh, right. This is for every item that she has in her, like that she's holding, she gets stats. So they're nerfing her mana regen and HPS. What's funny is I never took this one. I also barely ever play Ratna though. So, and then magic given on cast and magic given on back. What's funny is this is the one I would play if I was gonna play her, but usually because I had the idea of putting her then to backup probably, which is why. So they're just making that better. All right. I'll take that. Dragomir. Dragomir is overall in a solid spot with Act 1 and Endless Performance. He falls off a little more than I'd like to see in Act 2, so I'm increasing the magic scaling on his active abilities so that he can keep up with the kills. Awesome. Because to be honest, like, I probably run Tilly more frequently, but I actually would prefer to run Dragomir more frequently, I think, in terms of looking for shard generation. So getting a buff on his active ability is fantastic. His signature ability, I should say. The Sanguine now places him behind the enemy based on the direction they're facing. Yes, yes, yes. Fantastic. Same change they made to Yuna, but a really good assassin change to not have them get nuked in boss fights, because if you knew you were going into an AoE or a cleave boss fight, you just had to sell these people in the shop right before it, or put them on the bench. Saul, my girl. Okay, Saul is the only hero in the game that is a top performer across all 4 pre-endless timings. Unfortunately for Saul fans, this made a small nerf to her base kit hard to avoid. I'm aiming to maintain her identity as a flexible all-around hero who could perform well in a variety of team comps in both boss and non-boss fights alike. So the only change I'm making is a reduction in her base attack speed, but still, no, they made her worse. I get it though. She's really strong. She's really strong. And because of the way that her duelist ability scales, where she starts hitting multiple targets, she actually does still function pretty well in hallway fights. She's, you know, maybe not better than Funky, but better than a lot. And then she's exceptional in boss fights. So I think she'll still be generally, and we'll still play her a lot. Damn. All right, Pimenta, my other goat. Pimenta was one of the biggest risers this week, becoming the most popular hero in Red Rift. Hey, look at that. And top 3 in SSS. My intention for this change is to be a burf. Equal parts buff and nerf, where she shifts a bit of her power from the runaway HPS gains in the second half of her active ability and towards the offensive output in the first half of it. Interesting. So they're going to make her active ability hit harder, but provide less healing. Magic damage scaling is going up 25%. The poison inflicted is also going up. You're gonna get 1 poison per 20 defense as opposed to 1 per 25, so definitely more damage output, but the healing you're gaining is all right. That's not too bad. It's going down by 1 at base, right? So right now she gets 5 per tick. It'll be 4 per tick initially, but then you don't lose any more of her scaling beyond that. So yeah, that's gonna be a little brutal because I don't play her for the damage. I definitely play her, like, I mean, everybody plays her as a tank, and that's why they play her as a tank, because she can just live forever if she gets like 2 casts off. A little less possible now, right? But who knows, maybe the damage scaling ends fights a little bit quicker, or kills one person. If you kill one enemy a little bit faster, then the overall damage that you're taking, you know, is less, and maybe your survivability still goes up. So we'll have to see in practice. Kai, our last character here. Kai had 2 specs which stood out when viewed across the 5 timings, the Bold and the Intrepid. I'm sure some players are tired of seeing the Bold in patch notes at this point, but it remains Kai's top spec in every timing, including Endless. The Intrepid has struggled with low pick rate and poor boss performance since launch, and deserved a mini rework this week to make it both more exciting and more powerful. The new and improved Intrepid now gives Kai a permascaling option, which I hope will transform it into an enticing choice for Act 1 rank ups. I've been very cautious not to over-nerf the Bold, as it ranks among many players' favorite specs, and spent some time this week trying out different changes to ensure the Bold will remain playable and interesting after the changes. I've added Stall 15 to the on-cast bonus shields half of the Bold, which in the vast majority of cases means that just his first cast each combat will not receive the bonus shields from the Bold. I'd install the second effect, which gives Kai bonus shields on cast. But that means he's going to absolutely suck as a tank now, or as a pseudo tank, right? Like, won't he just absolutely fold if he takes aggro from people early? That first cast is usually something that saves him. I mean, if they're just trying to push him out of tank viability, I mean, because he is a warrior after all, but like, okay, that feels like a pretty large nerf, actually. I don't play Kai that much either, though. I mean, I play him occasionally. He's actually one of my favorite early characters, even if I might be trading him out for a more true tank later or something like that for my front line, but I'm always happy to play Kai early, but this might make that more difficult. And then the Intrepid, they reworked the first effect to give Kai permanent attack and lasting shields on crit. Now, that's kind of interesting. Lasting shields on crit. So then, yeah, you play him from, like, he'd still be a pseudo tank, but, like, from a carry position. So, like, your tank might die, but by the time your tank dies, if he's crit enough times to put some lasting shields up, could be kind of an interesting follow-up tank. Or if you split aggro, that could be the other option, and he just starts crit tanking somebody. That could be kind of interesting. That might be a fun build to try, so it's a cool change. I'll say that. All right. These patch notes today. These patch notes were dropped just yesterday for Guildrun, but I do believe they are in effect as of today. So yeah, very exciting stuff. I think honestly the coolest part of the patch notes is everything up here. Is getting to hear a little bit about Aleko's thought process around game design and approach to balance. I'll just reiterate. I would question the assumption that Red Rift players can't appreciate a buff as a function for balance, and that nerfs need to be the way, which honestly should hopefully be great news for Aleko, considering everything that they had written above. But yeah, and then I would be very curious to hear thoughts on or perspective on how they're evaluating relics and team size specifically when it comes to Red Rift, because from my anecdotal experience, I don't think anybody considers team size at all. So that function of the game just doesn't apply to Red Rift players currently. But yet they still show up in shops and things like that. So that would just be kind of one of the other things I'd love to hear about. But we'll have to see how these all play out on the Rift itself. At the very least, exciting stuff. The game is continuing to grow and getting all this attention because it's pretty great. So there you have it, y'all.